Hey, it's John.
And it's Dennis.
Thanks for joining us today on the Vending Plus. Today we have a special topic. It's one of my, I would say top favorite books. This book really had an influence on me. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon by George S. Clason. Did I pronounce his last name right?
I'm gonna assume you did.
Yeah, so pretty much this book is, what it says on the front cover. It's the success secrets of the ancient, the most inspiring book on wealth ever written. So, The Richest Man in Babylon. Dennis, did you had a chance to read this book?
No, I actually haven't. But that's it. Hearing the words "richest man" just makes me curious. But this is actually a first time. Kind of, the title of this book has kind of come across my eyes. But what is it about, John? Like, if you want to go more details into just the beyond the title.
Yeah, for sure. So through this podcast, I'm gonna walk you through Dennis kind of the topics of the chapters. I think those are great talking points that we can dive into. But on a very high level, The Richest Man on Babylon is a book that is about, forgot the guy's name, but pretty much why he's the richest man in Babylon. And, this book was written a while back ago, like, probably before we were born. And some of the fundamentals in this book is relevant in our today life too, right? So, a lot of principles that are shared, to make him become the richest man in Babylon actually is the same thing as what we can be doing in our daily lives to become, the richest man in, Toronto or something like that, right? So, I really like this book because of its business and financial aspect of the education piece. And then at the other end, I really like books that, take place in, ancient times, medieval times, like, in the past. I really like that type of, storytelling. So that's why I want to say this was one of my, top favorite books because of the two elements.
Hmm. Sounds interesting.
Yeah. Why don't we dive into some of the, chapters headings, and then we can kind of, maybe just talk a little bit about each chapter and then kind of share our thoughts and, see if we're actually incorporating some of, the principles the richest man of Babylon, talks about in this story. Does that sound good?
Yeah, it does.
For sure. So, on the first chapter, pretty much, the man who desired gold. So, pretty much, self-explanatory in the title. I think for anyone who wants to become, quote unquote, the richest man, there has to be a desire for money. You can't look at money as, evil, or, you can't, put a negative connotation to it. Money is neutral. Money is a, resource. It's a tool to, get you, whether it's to survive or whether it's to, entertainment, whatever. But how about you, Dennis? Like, when you hear, chapter one, the man who desired gold, like, what are your thoughts? Like, how do you feel about that?
What I feel is that gold is not a everyday commodity. It fluctuates every day. It's something that I guess I've been conditioned to not put my faith in. Right, our faith is in cash. Is that's our medium to as a transaction. But in the back of our mind, it's if all falls loose, we always go back to gold as the source of exchange and barter, right? So with this title, The Man Who Desired Gold, in today's world, it may not seem to be something um as desired as this man
Yeah.
may be, but
Yeah.
something, it's the general consensus, it's something shiny, something valuable, a wealth, right? That's how I
Yeah.
see it.
But just to clarify, then it's like the richest man in Babylon takes place in ancient times. So in the past, back then, there wasn't not enough currency to have cash. Gold was their currency, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they would have gold coins or whatever, like even bartering, and gold is one of their, tools of you know, what was that word? Not currency, but that word that they can use it to exchange for goods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Legal tender, like that's their legal tender.
Yeah.
So
It's
it's not about having the gold as in this day time, but gold in their time is their currency. So being someone who has a lot of currency, if you
yeah.
want to compare to today, right? So
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
yeah. So in chapter number 2, the richest man in Babylon. So, if I'm not mistaken, this story takes place, in the ancient past, and why this person became the richest man in Babylon is because, this individual who is desiring to, become wealthy, followed some great principles that how to handle this immense amount of wealth, right? So these are three, you know, I guess, points from the book. Live on less than you earn. Number 2 is seek advice from those who are competent through their experience to give it. And 3, learn how to make money work for you. And any of these, you know, are kind of ringing a bell to you. Have you heard of these anywhere? I think these are still, stuff that are being said today. And, take in mind, this book was written in the past, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think these laws, I hear it in different forms, right? So one's like live on less than you earn. It's basically saying don't live paycheck by paycheck. That's just there's no you can't you're not saving up for a rainy day, and you're kind of living off of each paycheck means you're kind of stretched, right? So that's how I hear and see that first line. Seek advice from those that are competent through the experiences to give it. It's kind of a little bit given, right? Like, well, why would you listen to someone who has never experienced anything give you tips on how to handle something, right? For us, I guess if you're less experienced in the investing world, you probably seek out a financial advisor or someone like that of expertise that do it for a living, right? You have a more confident factor in that person, or faith. And the last one is like learn how to make money money work for you. Again, I think this goes back to a little bit of a investment background, right? You have money that you save for a rainy day, but it's just sitting idle. Like you may want to allocate some of those funds into something that would gain interest or kind of make money for you as you're not actively working to get it, right?
Yeah, no, Dennis, I think you touched on all the right points, and forgot to mention this in the beginning. This book was written in 1926, and this actually takes place 4,000 years ago back in ancient Babylon.
Just before we go back, and maybe our listeners really know that I mentioned multiple times that I'm really bad at geography. So John, do you know where Babylon actually is? Is it somewhere in Europe?
South America.
Is it South America?
4,000 years ago, I think the Earth probably moved. Like, I googled it right now. It's the capital city of Babylonian Empire, which is in the Mesopotamian. Like, yeah, the Earth looks different back then, right? So this is the ancient world. This is not where we are, but let's just say probably. Oh,
So
here,
it's Iraq.
Iraq. Yeah,
Okay, well,
Middle East.
I would have been so off. I was thinking a little bit more Roman Empire, like the neighbors of a Roman Empire or something, but they're not there.
Yeah,
It's
but
Iraq.
Roman Empire is near that area. It's like,
Is it?
in that proximity.
Again, I'm
Yeah.
very bad at
We'll touch
geography.
back. We'll touch back. We'll fact check that, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good.
So the next chapter, chapter 3, and this is where we're probably going to spend most of our time on to talk about. And if I'm not mistaken, this was one of my favorite chapters. I think what happened in this chapter was, this person that was seeking to become rich became super wealthy and rich. So, there was a king in, I think it's Babylon, maybe, or somewhere, but they were looking at why their city was getting poorer and poorer, and they needed an expert, which was that individual who was the richest man in Babylon, to help them fix their finances, right? So there are 7 cures for a lean purse, and this is kind of the story of how he teaches I guess the king on these 7 secrets to a lean purse. Dennis, I send you the link. Maybe we can kind of go through each one, kind of share our thoughts back and forth, and then go from there.
Yeah. So let me start off. So the first cure for a lean purse is your income is your first wealth generator. Save at least 10%. I think this applies, where we touched upon before, where save for a rainy day, right? After your expenses, which are things that you have to spend on, whether it's food, whether it's some sort of clothing, right? Not the luxury stuff, but the bare minimums, things like that. You always have I'm hoping leftover, right? From there, you might want to save 10% of that, if not more, for quote unquote rainy day, and whatever's left off, then you can kind of freely spend without worrying about not able to make ends meet, right?
Yeah.
So that's so good.
Oh no, I was gonna kind of jump in and say, what do you think about it for this is obviously taking place 4,000 years ago, and it's obviously very insightful feedback, but in our time and age nowadays, things are getting more and more expensive. Is 10% savings even enough? Like, how much of your income should you really be stashing aside? Like, I think 10's a little bit low, on the low end.
I agree with that. 10 is a bit low. I think John, you and I kind of talked about it before, right? We're always thinking about properties and real estate and things like that. When the down payment's at least 20%, I don't think 10% of after your paycheck is covering all the expenses it's kind of enough, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think 10% makes sense anymore. But the fundamentals of this first cure, I think it's very important for anyone who doesn't even know about this. You should put, some sort of automated, system in place where, the minute you get your paycheck, at a minimum, 10% goes away and you don't even touch it, right?
Yeah. It's I think back in the day, 4,000 years ago, your expenses is a little bit much more different from it is today as well, right? We're kind of influenced by branding and marketing and things like that to kind of attract us to purchase items and things like that, as well as we have different, I guess, your breadths of quality. Well, I wouldn't say quality, but breadths of products, right? So, like, for example, a can of pop, you have no name brand, you have some sort of a name brand. Afterwards, you have like the premium stuff, right? You have 3 levels there already. And back in the day, 4,000 years ago, you probably just spent it on alcohol, right? But even today, our alcohol choices are through the roof. You have different qualities of alcohol. You have different brands, different companies, different, I don't know, like regions, right? Like, there's so much more it's exposed today. So I understand the difficulties of, being able to save that. But, I think it is the first stepping stone in that cure or that wealth generating, right?
Yeah. So yeah, let's move on. Number 2 is control your expenditure. And in the book, it talks about, budgeting the expense, right? So, just because your income grows, you're starting to make more money, your expenditure, shouldn't grow with it, right? Don't get confused with, expenses with your desires. So you often hear like, hey, the minute you get a promotion, the minute you make more money, hey, time to buy a new car, time to, buy, better clothing. Your expenditure, you can control your expenditure, right? So, in this book, it talks about, keep, 10% for yourself, right? So, if, you can set a budget for yourself, you should keep adjusting this budget. And by, keeping the budget, where it needs to be, this will help fatten your purse. And that's kind of the words they talk about in this book. What are your thoughts, Dennis?
No, I agree entirely. It doesn't, if, for example, if you were to get a bonus of some sort, right? You wouldn't want to spend that all away, right? You probably want to make that money work for you in other means and all that. And, by matching what you earn to what you spend, it just goes back to round square one, right? You're never gonna be quote unquote feeling wealthy and all that. So I agree 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, third point: make your gold multiply. So when you think of that, what do you think of immediately, John?
Yeah. So pretty much in the book, they talk about is, you probably have some money saved up, and, from following the first two principles, you're not spending everything you've earned. You need to put that money to work, right? So, you know, I guess in our time and age, you need to maybe put it in an investment vehicle. Maybe you can, start a side business or something with that money. And that's what it talks about in the book, right? So, putting your gold to work and creating income streams that will, you know, come in whether you are working or traveling. And, they actually use this term, passive income is true wealth. Make your money work for you. And, that's what the Vending Plus, is really about. You and I, Dennis, we know each other for quite a bit of time now. And, we always talk about passive income. So I think this one hits home for me, especially make your gold multiply.
Does the book kind of list examples of passive income 4,000 years ago?
You know what? I think they probably, buy sheeps or something like that, and, sell the wool. They can sell food. So, I do believe they have some examples, but I think we can get creative here. Like, we, instead of kind of talking about passive income today, but what passive incomes they have. So I know that, I believe, buying, farm animals, that's a source of passive income, because, your, animals can produce like milk, eggs, give off like wool, right? So back in those days, those are very valuable commodities that, they might use. So they would use their gold to buy, sheeps, right?
That's true. When whatever they kind of reproduce, you kind of sell them off as well, right? The offsprings, and then you kind of get that cut, and then as it ages and it's not able to produce like the wool or whatever comes out of the animal, then you sell it for meat, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a multi-purpose for all that. No, that makes sense to me then. I can't really imagine anything else 4,000 years ago, but I think animals definitely is a big one.
Yeah. But I do think they talk about, buying, doing work for other people, but, not using your time, but using, your goal to buy labor, right? So you're kind of making the difference. So I do believe the book goes into that. Don't quote me on that, but, if anyone, listening to us today already are interested, I highly recommend reading this book. It will most definitely, open your eyes to, building, becoming hopefully the richest man, wherever you are, right? So going into topic number 4, which was, guard your treasure from losses. And, before I kind of jump in to talk about this, what does this kind of tell you, Dennis? What do you think about this?
That the government's after my money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Dennis, maybe you can, well, maybe I can tell them kind of in the book, kind of where their thought is at for this. And then we can kind of, dig in and, put our thoughts to it. Sounds good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So pretty much in the book, it's, learning to protect that small amount before, you get the larger amount to manage, right? So, whether it's, in the past you're investing in, buying your sheeps or buying whatever, these are lessons, study before making your investment. And, another thing, don't borrow the money to people that won't repay you, right? So, if you give someone money, if they don't repay you back the first time, don't lend them money again. Use that first time lending them the money as your, lesson fee, right? You obviously know they're not a good friend if, you lend them money and they don't give it back to you. So in this chapter, they really talk about, using wisdom, using, your knowledge and education to really study and, invest where it's only safe and accessible and whenever needed.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
That makes sense to me. And where, when I first read this, guard your treasures, and I mentioned the government's after my money, right? It was just thinking of, everything we're being taxed on, right? And kind of even, even when you're given a salary per se, that's not your net salary, right? That's like your gross. So that's where I kind of mentions like, guard your treasures, where, the government at every moment will be, taxing you and try to take a piece of what you have. That's where I kind of want to put it out there.
Yeah. No, and I think when you said that comment, like, oh, I think that's a very smart comment. Taxes are honestly could be one, or probably is one of your top expenses in your lifetime, right? Whether
Yeah.
you're running a business or whether, for your personal, taxable income, taxes is, no small matter. So 100%, if you can't afford an accountant, we have Google. You should Google what tools out there that you can, shelter some of these taxes, right? There are investment vehicles out there, where you can put away money where, you can make tax-free investments.
Mm-hmm.
So Dennis, I think you've hit on exactly the key to this chapter, and this one of the seven cures to, a lean purse, which what they use at the term for the book, right? So
Yeah.
good stuff.
All right, on to number 5 of the cure for lean purse. So make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. Just to read off of what I see here, every man should own his own home. This reduces your cost of living and means more of your money is yours to keep.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that, Dennis? Like, we actually have a podcast that is about renting or owning, and I think this one hits home too.
Yep. I
Does
think,
this still make sense in this time and age?
yeah, I think so. Because at the end of the day, like you can you can decorate your living space as much as you want, right? To make it comfortable, to make it look great. But in the end of the days, it doesn't. It's not yours, right? That's the renting component. Versus when you own it, you feel like it's actually home, right? Whether it's disgusting, whether whatever your living condition is that your preferred to, you know, you own it. You're not paying something out of pocket for someone else per se, right? Everything is yours to own, and even the damages that you do in that home, that space, it's a you problem, right? You don't want it to be someone else's problem because that could easily escalate it to something that goes against you in cost wise, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. What if
and
you get sued, right? Like
yeah,
that's another expenditure you don't want happening.
yeah. Yeah, so I think this is another great one, and I'm actually, from a book standpoint, them having this in this, and this was written what, almost 90 years ago. I think it's still very relevant today.
Mm-hmm.
Moving to the sixth point, ensure a future income. So pretty much this is about, making preparations for income to comes in the later year, right? And, think of this as, retirement. As you get older, you're going to be less capable to make income, whether you're doing physical labor or, just energy wise. As you get older, you're going to get weaker, right? So you need to be ready in the future to get income, even though you're not working. And what are your thoughts on this one, Dennis?
When I read this, when I see future, I think of family and kids. That makes me think of our kids essentially investments so that when they're older they can kind of give back to you. Right? It's like, is that something, it's not like they're giving a big piece of their salary to you, right? But like, they're still able to supply some sort of income. Do you feel the same way, John?
Um,
Because
there is a saying. I don't know if I should say it. It might sound like I'm like an a-hole,
uh-huh.
but I heard this saying a lot. It's like it's actually in Cantonese. It's it's like what's it called? 把养仔,仔养仔 or something like that, right? So what it means is just like, your father is gonna provide for you, but then when you get older as a son, you're just gonna provide for yourself, right? So yes and no. I'm pretty sure, any right-minded person will take care of their family as they get older because, as you get older, you might, not be as dependent. And of course, someone raising you, you're gonna, look after them when they grow up. So yeah, they can be your future income. But I think, if we need to position ourselves in this book and using these tools, I think you need to ensure a future income, and ensuring a future income can't be just on one income source. So there has to be, the children can be one aspect, but there must be other investment that you've made to
Hmm.
ensure that future income. So yes to your question, Dennis, but no, as in like you can't just rely on that sole future income.
Right, right.
Yeah. You want to take us to the last point, Dennis?
Yeah, for sure. Last point: increase your ability to earn. So, going back to this small little summary, which means a strong desire to earn more is important and tangible. Press this until fulfillment, and you'll train yourself to accumulate wealth. Desires must be simple and definite. Perfecting yourself in your calling will increase your earning potential. You will earn more with persistent effort and increasing your skills. Learn more of your craft, and you'll be rewarded financially. What does that mean to you, John?
The more you learn, the more you earn. So play on words. I think this was maybe in the book, or maybe it's just a quote here, but great, you can save money. Great, you can, invest in your money to make more money. But this one hits home for me, like most definitely. Just because, you're comfortable and making enough income, you need to find ways to make more money, because if you want your, investments to grow, you need to fuel it. Yeah, like, maybe you make $100 and you put $50 in that investment, and as history shows, you'll get X amount of, I think on average 7% invest percentage increase per year, and by so and so you'll have this much money. But what if you can actually put in $100 instead of $50? Wouldn't that make you, it's actually not two times richer, because it's by it's it's the interest principle, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
actually exponentially getting richer. So, having the ability to, increase your earning, I think this was the one that really stood out to me, and really, even give us the passion to do a podcast and hopefully expand our skill sets and, the way we talk, and, obviously, hopefully give back to our audience.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Dennis?
You raise a great point, and no, I agree completely. I think the time that we spent, even creating this podcast, we learned so much of the different aspects of, like, I guess, production, planning, just the tools that we need to learn to edit and things like that. I think, you know, even if we don't make anything from these podcasts itself, at least we learn, like, oh, this is how these videos are made, and all that. So I found it pretty rewarding to take back.
Yeah, yeah. How are we doing on time, Dennis, by the way?
Yeah, we're running at about 29 minutes right now. I was gonna say, like, we may have to make a couple of different parts for this one, because I think there's a total of 10 chapters in this book.
Yeah, I think it's 10 chapters, and yeah, I think there's still some other really great, insightful things that I want to talk about in this book. I'm probably open for a part two, because I think we touched on a lot of important points today. But I would love to kind of, hear from our audience what their thoughts are, and were any of these tips that they apply in their current lifestyle, and are they using these principles? How about you, Dennis?
Yeah, I agree. Like if if you're taking away anything from this book or anything from this podcast, or even if you have kind of breezed through the book itself, I think you should let us know in the comments below, and uh, you know, we'll have a great discussion within our community.
Yeah, I guess one more point for me to add is, we have put our socials in place. And, for us to really grow this channel, I would, just ask kindly if you could support our channel, follow us, like our video, leave a comment. I'll personally reply back to any comment that comes in, any questions. Pass it to Dennis if he wants to add anything. And, Dennis will share with everyone, our socials and some of the hashtags that we're using to obviously gain publicity for our podcast.
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to get in touch with us, we are on this SoundCloud, Instagram, and Twitter at the Vending Plus. And if you want to tag us in any of what we kind of talked about today, or bring up a topic that you want us to talk about in our next episode, kindly put in hashtag the Vending Plus, and we'll definitely like it and respond.
Yeah, and maybe I'll toss this out there. If we get, maybe what, let's say 200 subscribers, I'm willing to buy our first 200 subscriber, if they are loyal fans, a copy of this book, and it's on me. 100%. Like, you have this on record. I will buy it.
Damn! Wow, that's a lot. Maybe I'll get a shirt too. I'll start liking and subscribing too.
Well, you can just take my book at home. You can read it. You haven't read it yet.
Nope. So that's I'll be better equipped for next episode for sure.
Sounds good. Thanks everyone for listening tonight, and everyone have a good night wherever you are.
All right, take care now. Bye.